Wait, they're not up
Yeah.
yet. Now they're.
We'll call the meeting to order for the Economic Development Authority for Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. First item, we have a quorum, so we'll waive the roll call. Next item 2 is to approval of the minutes.
Offer a motion to approve those.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item number 3, EDA Director's Administrative Report.
Right. Good morning, Commissioners and President Brom. You have the reports before you. I'll just highlight a couple items. Under the Public Housing Program, I'm happy to report that as of Friday, October 1st, Plunkett's completed their last final follow-up inspection and treatment for bed bugs. No live bugs have been seen in the building. So they do not plan to do any further follow-up treatments unless we have a sighting. So hopefully we're turning the page on that issue.
And Heather, you had mentioned that you are giving training to, like, you kind of showed them what to look for?
We
or
did.
kind
We
of
had,
posted?
yeah, we had a tenant meeting with representatives from Plunkett's to give them information, address any concerns, answer questions that they had. We gave them a handout with information so they know what to look for. We did a follow-up memo after this final inspection to let them know that we've, had the all clear, but that they must report immediately if they think they have any activity in their unit so that we can treat accordingly and hopefully stay on top of it before it gets out of hand like it did this round. So happy to move on from that topic. Under the Home Buyer Assistance Loan Program, one application was received and approved in the amount of $6,275. Under the Get It Ready Loan Program, we closed a loan in the amount of $26,000. And I believe that is all that I wanted to highlight, unless there's any questions.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the Economic Development Authority administrative activities for the month of September 2021.
Second.
First and second, is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 4, Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program.
All right, so this is the budget for the calendar year 2022. The Section 8 program, we administer 124 housing choice vouchers, which serves Brown County, Minnesota. Funding for this program comes entirely from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. We receive funding to make the housing assistance payments to landlord, as well as funding, administrative fee funding that covers staff salaries, supplies, that sort of thing. So for many, many years, the primary issue with this budget continues to be inadequate funding. I cannot recall the last year we've been able to fully fund or fully utilize our vouchers. Looked at the last year or the year to date, 2021, we've been able to fund an average of around 107 vouchers. We estimate that number to remain stable in 2022 based on our current cost per voucher and anticipating funding projections. We do not know yet what our funding will be for next year, so this is our best estimate based on our costs year to date and that sort of thing. So I have the budget worksheet attached for you, and I'll take any questions.
Couple questions, Heather. Did you see a lot of portability of the vouchers for last year? Isn't that where someone gets the voucher here and then leaves? Doesn't have a huge economic impact on ours?
You know, it
potentially?
really, It really hasn't been. Anyone that requests to port out of the area, we approve the request, and some are able to do that successfully and lease up in another area. That housing authority has the choice to either absorb them into their program and give us our voucher back to use for someone else, or they have the choice to bill us for that voucher. Right now, we only have 2 housing authorities that are billing us. So some that ported out either didn't lease up, and so their voucher expired, we got the voucher back, or they did lease up and that housing authority chose to absorb them, and we got our voucher back. So I would say out of the 107 average vouchers that we're using, to have 2 that we're being billed for, I would not say has a huge impact on our program.
And I know we went with that project-based voucher for Emerson Union. Can you give us an update on those? Are those being fully
Yep.
utilized?
4 of our vouchers were dedicated to the Emerson Union Apartments for their long-term homeless individuals. We have 3, I believe, being used right now. 1 apartment is vacant, and they're working on finding someone off. There's a list they have to take people off to go into those apartments, and they are working on that.
I'll offer the resolution and waive the reading to adopt the 2022 Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program annual budget.
I'll second.
First and second, any additional discussion? Since this is a resolution, we need to do the roll call vote.
All right, Commissioner Becker,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
President Brom.
Yes, motion is carried. Item number 5, Public Housing Program, Operating Reserves Litigation. So that we've had an update on that item.
Yeah, and so for those of you who were not on the board in 2017, I just kind of gave an overview of this issue. So when the New Ulm EDA chose to start the public housing program back in the early 80s, we entered into a contract with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, to administer the program. That contract stipulates that HUD will fund our program based on an operating fund formula. And that formula is calculated based on rental revenue and utility expenses from the prior fiscal year. As you remember, we had a recession around 2008, 2009, and in 2011, Congress authorized HUD to require agencies with a healthy operating reserves to utilize their reserve funds in lieu of receiving an operating subsidy. As a result of the operating reserve offset of 2012, the New Ulm EDA received no operating subsidy funds for the entire year in 2012. So we were one of those lucky agencies that had what they considered to be a healthy reserve fund that we could afford to operate for a year without receiving any subsidy. If not for that offset, our agency would have received approximately $58,000 in operating subsidy in 2012. A breach of contract lawsuit was filed on behalf of 355 Housing Authority plaintiffs in October 2012. The EDA was presented with information about this lawsuit in September 2012 and opted to not participate in the lawsuit. On January 18th, 2017, the United States Court of Federal Claims, or Claims Court, held that this offset was, in fact, a breach of contract between HUD and the housing authorities and awarded over $136 million in damages to the plaintiffs. Of course, we did not participate, so we did not receive any damages at that time. As a result of this decision by the Claims Court, a second lawsuit was filed, and the EDA opted to join in the second round. That lawsuit was filed November 15th, 2017, and we are pleased to report to you today that after nearly 5 years of appeals, extensions, and COVID-related delays, the case is over and the housing authorities have again prevailed. We should be receiving a payment for the damages to which we are entitled. There is no detail available at this time on a timeline for when we might receive that payment, but we have been advised it will likely take several months, at least, possibly longer. I looked back, we paid a total of $1,100 in legal fees to join this lawsuit. It was initially $1,000, and then because it dragged on, they did come back and ask for an extra $100 to continue representing us, which we agreed to pay. We expect to receive approximately $47,000 in damages. There's a proration on it, that's why it's a lower amount. So we'll receive the prorated amount of funds that we should have received that year. So pretty good return on investment for $1,100 to receive about $47,000. So we're happy with that this is over. You can see the attached most recent correspondence notifying us of the news. So.
What will you do with the money? Will it go into the reserve fund?
That's a good question. I don't know yet. I am checking into that. I believe because it is not an operating subsidy, it's actually damages from a court case, that we don't have to put it into the Public Housing Reserves Fund. It could actually be utilized for other uses. I am trying to verify that. So I will come back to the board probably when we receive the money and when I have further information, and then it'll be up to you to decide what we want to do with those funds.
Where are we at with like the multifamily rehab fund? I mean, we're still in the
Back
works
in
on
the-
that.
I-
Could we
none of our
fund that with some of these funds potentially?
Potentially.
Okay.
None of our loan and grant funds are out of money at this time, and we are nearing year end, so like I say, that'll be a future discussion.
I think that's wonderful news. It's great. So I will receive the correspondence regarding the operating reserves litigation case filed on November 15th, 2017.
I'll second.
First and second, any additional discussion? Hearing none, then we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We are at item 5.2, the EDA claims list. Anything stand out on that?
I'll just mention here, because we didn't have a maintenance technician, we were paying someone to mow the lawn at Broadway House for us, as well as paying someone to come in and clean the building. We had a new maintenance technician start last week. So those expenses will go away, but now salaries will go up a little bit. So, and then the bill from Plunkett's, I believe was for September treatment. We might have one more bill for the treatment they did October 1st, and then those we shouldn't see those anymore.
I'll approve the claim list for October 12th.
I'll second the motion.
First and second, any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item number 6.1, commercial property rehab loan for Spec Sys, Inc.
Commissioner President, Commissioners, before you have a loan request from Spexis for the commercial property rehab. They are interested in redoing their roof. It has leaks in it and they need it repaired. Total project cost is roughly $55,000, so they are well below the 50% threshold. They're requesting the max amount of $74,900. This would be a 10-year term, 2% interest rate. They would have to sign promissory note and mortgage. They would also provide a personal guarantee and would be responsible for all closing costs associated with the loan transaction.
They have a loan with us now, correct?
Yes, and that's going to be paid off
About that.
December of Dave next. Oh, balloon payment. Yeah, balloon payment in December, right? Yeah. So they'll finish paying that one off, and then this one will be in place.
Not seeing any concerns listing, I'll go ahead and approve with conditions of $74,900 commercial property rehab loan to Spexis.
I'll second the motion. Either way. We will flip a coin. Sure. Okay. We have a first and a second. Any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion is carried. Item 6.2, funding request for New Ulm Economic Development Corporation, Executive Director.
I had looked this over and just think that it's something that should be tabled until we get a little bit more information on it. I don't know if there's anything anyone wanted to share, but
I would concur. It seems like there's a whole lot missing to this proposal.
Well, the only thing I would ask is that if there's a whole lot missing, to list your concerns in writing and get them to the EDC, and that way they can be properly addressed.
Well, I don't have a problem talking about some of that now, so you have that information. It kind of came out of the blue to me. It's like, wow, all of a sudden now this corporation, which hasn't just donated a lot of their money to the school, now wants an EDC person, or wants a director, and I don't know what the salary is, I don't know what the requirements are, I don't know what the agreement between EDA and EDC would be, who's going to do what, what's the salary, who's involved in the hiring. I mean, just all that stuff is not in here.
Well, right now, and this has been something that's been going on for quite a while. It's not new.
It's very new. I've never heard of it. It might be new to you because you're on both committees, but it's new to me, and I don't know how it is to the committee. I've not heard this topic at all.
So I would say.
And I'm not saying I'm against it either. I'm just saying I need a lot more information.
Yeah. So I would say this is kind of going back to what they used to have. So Brian Tollhall was their executive director, and so they haven't had someone in that leadership position for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And so they are looking now to find someone, and again, I don't disagree with them wanting to have an executive director at this point. I think they do need someone there to helm and guide that ship. But much like you, Commissioner Schultz, I did, they are missing some things, and those, you're kind of hitting the nail in the head. It's the objectives, the salary, and things like that. What is that person's role? And so that's something, I can write that up and get that to Shannon, Jeff, and Julie, so they can bring that back to their board. And then in November, we can relook at potentially funding the position.
Well, and the city just eliminated their economic development person, so how does this incorporate with that role? And, I mean, all that's got to be discussed and talked about, so.
Yeah, and I think that those things are completely independent of one another. This whole proposal really came out of the strategic planning. If you recall, we hired, and this is a group effort, and it was really facilitated by the New Ulm Economic Partnership. It was paramount through the course of that strategic planning that the position of an executive director be filled within the EDC, because there is no ongoing person to support the activities within that. I think they kind of adopted a wait-and-see attitude after the city hired an economic development director to see if there could be some coordination, and unfortunately, that was not forthcoming. So I think as we developed a strategic plan, it became very apparent, and anybody who participated with that should be well aware of the fact that there was a definite need for there to be a person to fill that role. We've gone through some transition in the EDC. We've had some board members exit. We've brought in some board members. We've got, I think, a young and vibrant board. There's some entrepreneurs involved with the board now. And I think there's a new sense of focus. And with the new directives that came out of the strategic plan, that's really what was driving this decision. I think there's some concerns here today because one of the people that has expressed interest in the job is a person that some people don't feel is the right fit. But I can tell you that we're not ready to make a decision on an individual at this time whatsoever. It's really just getting the ducks in a row so that when we get to that, we don't have to come back and offer a person a position on the job contingent on having some potential funding issues. So that's really why we wanted to get this as a precursor, just to know that we have this part in place so that we can move forward. But there's reservations right now because of a particular individual, and that's really what's driving this to get put on the, set aside for right now.
I'm not sure if it's, I'm just going to, in regards to a particular individual, but there's still no job description and what the visions are. This is supposed to be a partnership between
Right,
everyone.
and that's really,
that's really,
the prerogative of the New Ulm Partnership. They are the overriding entity that's supposed to kind of coordinate and get everybody on the same page. And I guess if that's not occurring yet, then I guess that has to be addressed with the folks that are on the partnership. And unfortunately, nobody from the EDA was invited to be a part of the partnership, so we have to defer to other individuals that are involved with that. And again, we've done this before. That's how I got put on the EDC board, was the last time they came to the EDA and asked for $50,000. It was approved without really any of the stipulations that were being asked of today, with the one being that I had to go and serve on that board, and that was one of the conditions. So I wasn't asked to or volunteered to or wanted to be involved with the EDC at that time. It was a condition of the $50,000 being extended back then. So here we find ourselves with it again today. And again, if this is a situation where you are looking for information, I would think it would be, paramount that it really go to the partnership. They're the ones that are supposed to be overseeing all of this for all economic activities. That was one of the things that came out of that strategic plan too, is that we have better coordination. And I think if you look at the past history, there were groups that were involved with economic development that really weren't marching to the same drumbeat. And I think that's the big difference that we're going to see now. Just because we're asking for the money today doesn't mean we're going to be writing a check today or anytime soon. It's just that we want to get it aligned so that we have the ability to move forward when the time comes.
I would support tabling this for now too, but what I'd be looking for is, what are those predetermined objectives as far as what, we've had this partnership, we've done a lot of research, where are those gaps at, so that the person filling this role is focusing on those things that we're not doing right now or that we're missing with, recent changes in who we've had in an economic development role. So I'd be interested to see what are those objectives, to know that this is something worth funding, that if there's gaps out there, let's get those things accomplished.
Some of the gaps are, for instance, nobody's really calling on businesses right now to see what their particular needs are in terms of expansion. We're not really, there's really no go-to person when it comes to potential business and seeking out and soliciting businesses. So that's one thing. The other thing, the objective is the EDC is looking at getting into creating an incubator site, and that would be facilitated through them obtaining grants. And so this executive position would be writing grants to secure funding for a potential incubator site. So that's another objective. Yet another objective is really long-term for the EDC to become self-funding. So they would secure funding so they wouldn't have to keep coming back and begging for money from the EDA, so they can kind of go it alone. That's not to say that they're not going to need our support maybe for the next several years, but the long-term goal would be for them to be able to operate on their own, but yet being coordinated through this overriding partnership that we've all kind of come to the table and agreed upon.
But I still think that we need a little bit more information here. And so I will reiterate my motion to table this item.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion?
Some of the other areas as well, first of all, I have no clue who you're talking about as far as an individual person. Nothing's been said to me about any of that. I also like to know more about this $50,000. Is this, I'd like to see the budget that they're proposing. Is this half the salary? Is this a portion of the salary? Are they going to have an office? And I mean, there's just so much missing that we can't just hand out a check for $50,000 without a whole lot more information. And so again, I'm not against this. I just want a whole lot more information. And I think we probably could support something like this.
Well, I
Not
would
yet.
invite anybody here to address their concerns to Newell Partnership with their concerns so that hopefully they can get met and answered appropriately.
I'm not sure what you mean, Chair. You're just heard from this whole entire group concerns, and now you want us to write them down?
Well,
I'll write them down and
Okay.
I'll get them
Yeah.
to, I'll get them to the
Chris
people
is a
they need to
part
get
of the
to.
partnership, so I think what we're striving for here, and maybe we're not quite there yet, is better communication.
Yes. Yep.
And some clarity on,
Right. And I think that's an objective of everybody that's involved with this, so that we do move forward in a unified effort, and that's not happened in the past.
I'll call for the vote.
That's fine. I just, no other discussion, correct? So we can call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion is carried. Item 6.3.
We need to do a roll call vote when someone votes no.
Yes.
We do with the council.
Okay.
That's fine. We can recall the vote by roll call.
Commissioner Bedker?
No.
This is on the motion to table.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Commissioner Fitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
President Brum?
No. Item 6.3, available property search tool.
Commissioner President, Commissioners, before you have a request for property search tool through GIS planning. It's a 3-year contract of $5,000 a year. If we were to do a year contract, it would be $5,000 for the first year, and then each additional year it'd be $5,000 plus an additional 3%. So this way we're locked in at that $5,000 rate. So what this tool actually does is allows us to put in all our available properties that are in the city. So that'd be the EDC sites, it would be anything that is for lease or for sale, and someone could go in and search that information, and it'll all be drawn within city limits. It'll be through, they use Google Maps, but we can layer in all our GIS information into it. So what it does is you'll be able to see where all the sites are. There'll be details on there. We would have the broker information in there as well. So if someone looking for a site likes this space right there, they can click on View Details. Slight information on there, all the property details, square footage, if it's available, whether it's for sale or for lease, and then the contact information for the person who's in charge so they can get in touch with them. Now, the one thing that would set this apart from a lot of other things, that were looked at in the past is part of that is you can now have all kinds of demographic information based on that site location. So you can do a 10-mile radius, you can do 5-mile radius, you can do drive times, and it'll pull in the median wages, hourly wages, their demographic information. And this is updated twice a year, so someone who's a site selector can look at that information and know without having to call or search for that information on their own. So a very good, powerful tool in the recruiting efforts, or an established business can sit down and look at competition, who's around them, what their radius, drive times are. So it's a very useful tool, not just for site selectors, but for businesses as well. So it would be my recommendation to move forward with a 3-year contract, so we get locked in at that 5,000 rate. And if approved, we would let them know, and we'd be able to move forward, and hopefully by the end of the year have this up and running. So early spring, we'd be able to get this information out there to brokers and realtors.
Chris, would this be a link on our website?
It would be actually embedded in our website. So yes, there'd be a link there, but it would be just part of our website.
So you're well aware of like the deed shovel-ready parameters.
Yep.
Some of that information, can that be incorporated in with the particular site? Like survey or phase 1 environmental studies and those sorts of things? So if a potential buyer, that all can be placed within the confines of a particular parcel?
Yeah, so we can go in under here, whether it's under building details, or we can work with them to have, or property details, and include links to things like that.
Okay.
How did you come to know about these guys, Chris?
GIS planning, they've done work with the city of Plymouth. I ran into the city manager at an event and talked to them about it. City of Stockton, which is this one, is a fairly large city in California that does it. And there was another, Waverly, Indiana was kind of the one that kicked off looking into this. When I went to their site, they had this available, and it really wowed. And I looked at some other ones that just didn't have the functionality that this one has.
What's the closest thing that we have in comparison to this now? Like they call the city, they call the
They would
Okay.
call us, either myself, John, and Dave. We'd all bust out the zoning map, and we think this is for sale. We're not 100% sure. So part of what this is going to be also is we're not going to use what I would call the underground market economy, where if we think something's for sale, but we're not 100% sure, or if we call the person and they don't want to give us a price for that land, that stuff is not going to be on here. It's going to be stuff that is for sale, is for lease. We know the price, so that it's not the guessing game.
Well, and I think the chamber has had some work in this regard, but maintaining that is a daunting task
It will
because
be.
things can change. These folks will be able to keep up on that a lot more quickly and responsively. And
So that would be on us.
oh, okay,
That's still on us. So we would so the chamber has kind of done some of that work already. They've gone out, they had an intern go and do that. We would go through once more, verify that all that is still correct, and then import all that data in there.
So ongoing, then that would still be the city's responsibility to
Yes.
update that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And the realtors, if something's through, Red Shoe or BOCO and they sell something, they would
They have the
let us
ability
know.
to independently go list that.
Yeah, so we can give them a login just to log in, not manipulate any data, but fill in the fields so they can do that. And what we could do also as part of this is you can set timelines or times on there. So you can say, after 90 days, it comes off, and then you can go, it doesn't delete it, it just goes dormant, and you can go back out, verify that information, and then click it back on if it's still available.
So this is just commercial and industrial?
We can do residential in there as
So I
well.
was wondering
Yeah.
if we expand it and then reach out to developers that potentially have lots for multi or single family,
Yeah.
that could be incorporated?
Yep.
Interesting,
So it
okay.
would just be under property details. We would just zone it what it's supposed to be zoned.
Okay.
So Chris, my question would be, anytime we have a new software program, it's great, but the time it takes to develop this program, where's that going to land? Whose desk is that going to be on?
So that would be, so developing it would be between Heather and myself. Essentially is where that's gonna fall. Initially, like I said, we'll get the initial stuff from the chamber because they've kind of been the one carrying the torch for the property search. That can automatically be imported, and then we can do, like I said, we can turn on, 90 days, and they just automatically turn off, and then it's just the updating of it.
Is there a way to recognize duplicates, like if you put something in and then a realtor puts?
Yeah, so it would already say, hey, there's an existing building at that address.
If a city person puts in a particular lot, would that prohibit, say, the real estate broker or realtor from going in and editing it, depending on which user account it was utilized under?
No, so we would set the user account so that they could edit,
Okay,
but not manipulate, kind of the fields and stuff.
Sure.
They would be standard, the field, you can fill in the fields, you can't add stuff. If they want to add stuff, that's when they would have to contact Heather or I, as far as another field or something like that.
will you be having like meetings with local developers and?
Yep.
Okay.
Once it's up and we're able to put stuff in and Heather and I get the training from GIS planning, we will hold that.
Okay.
That.
What's their time frame for?
Don't know yet, because it hasn't been approved, but my goal, and I would ask them if we can get this up by the beginning, early next year. So we can get everyone trained, and but before spring rolls around, it would be available.
Heather, what do you think about it?
I think it's really cool. Chris has been showing me this for the last month or two, and I'm excited to, if this is approved, to start working with it. I think it's going to be really
Hurry up,
great.
take pictures
great
before
tool.
snow, huh? Yeah. Otherwise, they'll all be snow pictures.
Is there search capability? So if there's a buyer of a lot, I mean, what kind of search optimization do they use in terms of web?
Oh, so it would be search engine optimized, and part of my report there'll be some questions or kind of answering the questions that I think a lot of members have here. What is economic development for the city on this? Now that Audra is gone, who's filling in the roles and stuff. So when we get to my report, we'll go through some of that.
Okay. Well, and I would assume then you can get traffic reports every month on volume and activity on the site.
Yep.
And how many clicks and hits and all that good stuff?
And
Okay.
we'd be able to see who's clicking on those and be able to reach out or some of the analytical data. So
I think it's a great investment if you really think about people that want to expand property, for example, and they're probably not going to call anymore. They're going to go to the website. That's just the way it is. And if they go now, they're not going to get much, and maybe they move on to Hutchinson, or maybe they move on to another city similar to our size and see what they got. And, oh, look at this. They got all this good information. They're showing that they're progressive. They're showing that they're so, yeah, I support this, and I'm going to offer a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement with GISP1 Planning in the amount of $15,000 for a 3-year term.
I'll second the motion.
First and I do have one more question.
Yes.
Sorry. I'll add it into this phase or whatever. Is this mobile device compatible too?
it is.
Okay, great.
It is.
I mean, I can see somebody coming into town, and we've literally had that happen. Somebody wanted to look at what was available, and if they have this tool, they can literally drive around town and look at a address and then physically go to the site and have a look at it. So I think that's a wonderful feature too, so, okay.
And we can push stuff out. If we have a property of the week, you can push it out through Twitter, Facebook. It creates that stuff. So
Wonderful.
It'll be good.
Getting into the 21st century, awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Do you know, do they have an app, or would they just go to the
It would still be through the website, but
Okay.
it's scalable down to
Yeah,
mobile.
most of these programs now are mobile ready, and they can work through cross platforms, which is nice. You don't have to download a separate app anymore for a lot of things. So, and that's great that this has that feature and functionality too. So,
Yep. Perfect.
any other discussion on the matter?
I just think it's good because whether you're spending your time answering phones or updating the listings, there's some time that's getting taken away one way or another, and I'd rather have it be something that the people want, that they're looking for, so I think
Right,
that's good.
and this is exactly, in my mind, this higher level stuff, and I think I applaud the city for let's take the lead on this, because it's beneficial for all of us that are, in economic development to have these kinds of coordinated efforts, so, and I think this is great, and I think this is a perfect use of EDA funds to facilitate this, so exactly the kind of stuff we've been talking about, so.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, I'll call for the vote. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Got to get the glasses on, sorry. Next item, 6.4, Rural Child Care Innovation Program Monthly Report.
And I'll turn this over to Mayor Sweeney.
I don't know this. This isn't.
I know this is our grant program,
Yeah.
grant program.
Well, let me make things up here.
Way to pass the buck, Heather. I mean, hey, I think you woke Cherry up, though. That's kind of cool.
All right. As promised, when you accepted the Rural Child Care Innovation Program grant, we said we would come to you monthly with a report and update on activity. So at this time, I just wanted to report that the first 2 cohort meetings have been scheduled. The first is this Friday, October 15th, will be an in-person meeting. It'll be a 6-hour orientation for all cohort team members, and alternate team members have been invited to the meeting as well. This just gives an overview of what the program is, what our focus will be, what they can expect as we go through the next 18 to 24 months. And then a second meeting has been scheduled also in October on the 28th, and that will be a virtual meeting. It'll be a 2-hour planning session. So there will be 2 events that we'll be planning. The first is a community town hall to talk about the daycare needs in our community, educate the community on what we're doing. And then also planning a provider appreciation event, and that will be for all of our existing local providers to come in and have a catered meal and just show them that we appreciate them, and that'll just be a fun event. So both events, I believe, will be scheduled to happen by the end of the year, so come back with an update next month.
That's what I was going to say.
Just what you were going to say.
Well said.
I'll make a motion to receive the monthly report on the Rural Child Care Innovation Program activity.
I'll second.
So only question I have, Heather, is
Yes.
why are we called cohorts? I
don't know.
In my mind, that's a negative sort of.
Is it?
Do we get to name ourselves when we have our first meeting and give ourselves some really glitzy?
I don't know. We'll find
the-
out on
the-
Friday.
the Child
That's
Care
just what they-
Crusaders or something?
That's
I
just
don't
what
know.
they call it.
Oh, okay.
That was,
okay.
yeah.
All right, we have a first and second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, I think this is where Mr. Sweeney, our good honorable mayor, is up for the senior subs, daycare providers. So what do you have for us this
Well,
morning?
first of all, I want to apologize. Les tasked me with coming up with a clever name for it, and senior subs is as clever as we became. So, Terry's toddlers or
I
something.
like Terry toddlers.
They had something with granny's, I don't know. So anyway, we met on September 30th. That is, we, meaning myself, Kara Knopf, the head of CAST and the senior center, and then Laura Filson, who really prompted this all the thinking with me when Laura presented to us a couple months ago. And Laura had 2 of her co-workers with her whose names I forget offhand. But nevertheless, the sad part is, well, the good part is we did a wonderful presentation. I don't know that it could have been better, but we only had one person there. But she's quite interested. But by the same token, Kara said she knows of other people who have told her, other seniors who have told her that they are interested, but that time didn't work out. So we're going to do it this afternoon at 2:30 again at the senior center. And so where Laura and her two helpers really shined was talking about the training. Because I think that's the biggest impediment to anybody coming in with the idea, I could do this. We clarified to them that it's not like me watching one of my own grandkids. It's you going into somebody's house that could have 5 to 8 to 10 kids of varying ages as well. By the same token, you'd only be there for an hour or two. I had one daycare person tell me I'm not going to tell you their name, but that they don't have a valid driver's license because they haven't been able to go to the driver's license to renew it. Their work schedule is so intense, and that's where something like this would shine. So we're anticipatory that there will be better attendance at this meeting. And you know what? If we only get 1 or 2, then that's what we get. It's still better than none. So I think this is actually going to go and have some teeth, and then Laura will kind of coordinate the training with them. And that lady who was here at the last time, she seemed undaunted by taking training and some of it being online as well. So what I thought was a major impediment didn't prove to be with that case. So we're hopeful that today will go better than even last time.
And if it doesn't, I think then it's just maybe a discussion about how do you reach those seniors in a different way. Where are they meeting at now? Where could you go to the senior center when they're playing cards and say,
Yeah.
hey, can
Yep.
I get 10 minutes? I don't know, I'm just.
Clay
brainstorming.
has been a good advocate.
Yeah,
He was at
absolutely.
the last meeting and has put an article in again today. And so the Journal has been a good source. Kara's put it out on her weekly Weaver. And she has printouts in the senior center. But yeah, there's probably people that are seniors that don't go to the senior center. And how can we reach them would be our
Yeah.
next challenge.
Yeah,
Turner Ladies, Andrea, very good.
yeah, there you go. And there's probably some other groups like that maybe, yeah. They're already volunteers, already out there doing stuff.
Yeah, the concept's sound then, so that we'll see
Yeah.
how it goes, but getting it to other people would be our challenge.
You hope word of mouth, if a couple people go through this and start doing it, they'll tell a friend and they'll tell a friend. And
Radio
this
might
is
also be a good,
This is the program that the EDA agreed to fund the training
Yep.
for. So the money's there.
And maybe that is an item that we talk about at the town hall meeting for that other group too. I mean,
Sure.
getting the word out in multiple facets is only going to increase awareness, so.
and I know we agreed to fund the training, and I wonder if it's, at some point, Terry might want to think about, could we fund the actual payment as well? They go into a home for 2 hours so somebody can get a break. Could the EDA pay that versus the daycare home? I don't know. I'm just, something we're throwing out. It's not a big number, so.
Laura's survey rather, with I think 18 daycare people, something like that, was not all of them participated. Not all of them wanted somebody they don't know in their home. A reasonable thing. I don't know that I personally would, but nevertheless, they were willing to pay gladly $10 to $20 an hour.
Yeah.
And the talk was, well, what if I'm 80 years old, I'm still pretty spry, and I'd like to do this, but I don't know that I can handle 8 little kids. Could I bring a partner with? And then does that partner get paid the same wage? That was something that came up that we don't know the answer to at this point, but
I think, to me, that makes a lot more sense. I mean, if I was elderly, I'd want to go in with a partner, versus walking into
like
that house.
elderly Jess there.
I've read somewhere that there was no age limit. So as you have people retiring earlier, could a 55-year-old person?
Yeah, right,
you
so
know?
there's not.
So it's not
Yeah.
senior, so to say. It could be anybody. Is that
Yeah.
what I'm getting?
Yep.
Okay.
Still got to hang with the name though, because it's alliterative.
I know. The name is cool. Got it.
There's some groups that target volunteers, so they look at who are the teachers that retired last year?
Yeah.
Who are the daycare professionals that retired last year, or the dentists that retired last year, and they target them and they send them a letter. And
Yeah.
so it just depends on how aggressive you want to go, your group decides, so. Good work.
Do we need a motion to receive the update?
Yep.
I'll make the motion then to receive the update on the senior subs daycare provider program.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, we'll call for vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Item 6.6, 2021 audited annual financial report.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. I will go through this relatively quickly. Danielle's here too, also the Assistant Finance Director. She worked very closely with the auditors to complete the audit, so she will be able to answer any questions you may have as well. So our year ended on July 30th, 2021. The results of the audit, I mean, they were okay. Things changed. Things went up and down. Nothing was overly impacted by COVID at this point in time. Looking at the audit here, the unrestricted net position increased by $76,000. And this, so their unrestricted net position is $2.9 million, which is 143% of their expenses. Even the city, their recommended fund balance is 30 to 55, or 35 to 50%. So the EDA is very well funded, in a good position. Their total net position decreased, but that was due to less capital grants in the year, and those capital grants are based on need and timing, so it fluctuates from year to year. The cash investments decreased by $27,000. Again, that was due to the small business and home buyer assistance loans that went out in the year. And then the operating and revenues decreased by $49,000. And the expenses increased by $324,000, and that reflects more the transfers in between. Looking at the net position just in a higher level here, you can see the net position, or the total assets decreased a little bit, as I said on the last slide, or was kind of reflected on the last slide. Total liabilities also went down, and then the total net position decreased a little bit. This slide just shows you which portions of the EDA carry that net position. As you may know, the EDA is made up of several funds. One is the governmental fund, which is the main fund. Public and Indian housing, which is Broadway House, Section 8, in the market rate housing, then 2 is Garden Terrace, and then the other rental properties that we have. So you can see that the market rate housing, Garden Terrace, of course, carries the largest portion of our net position. Cash and investment balances by fund. Here again, you can see that Garden Terrace carries the largest portion of our cash and investments, with the rental properties and the Section 8 carrying the lowest portion of our cash. Looking at revenue trends, this is from government type, or the government activities, sorry. The government funds revenues increased by $235,000, business type decreased, and the total increased slightly in the revenues. The revenue in the governmental funds would be the transfers coming in. The decrease in the business activities would be the transfers going out to the government fund. So they kind of balance each other out. Expenses in the governmental activities decreased. The business type increased. Again, that large expense in the business type activities would be that transfer that went to the EDA to help cover all those loans and grants and things that were administered. Looking just at the governmental activities, the revenues increased by $487,000, again, including transfers. Expenses decreased by $29,000, and the net position increased by $326,000. The public and Indian housing, or Broadway House, the revenues decreased by $157,000. That's reflected in the grants being down, and then the transfers in also being down. And those transfers in with Broadway House are those capital grants that come in. There's a separate fund that holds those grants, and then they get transferred in there. So with less capital grants, of course, there was less transfers into Broadway House. The expenses also decreased by $26,000, and the position decreased by $44,000. Looking at Section 8, the revenues increased by $81,000. Those were operating grants that drove that increase. And the expenses increased by $82,000, and the net position increased by $27,000. And then looking at Garden Terrace, the revenues increased by $11,000. Of course, rents went up a little bit, interest went down. Expenses increased by $670,000. That includes that $495,000 transfer. And then the net position decreased by $429,000. And then the rental properties, the revenue was up $44,000. The expenses were also up $27,000. So the net position increased by $8,400. And the capital assets, for the most part, they're very steady. Any decreases were due to depreciation. There wasn't really any additions or things taken out of the assets. So. And then in summary, the auditor's results, we got an unmodified opinion, which is good. No instances of noncompliance were material to the financial statements, and no deficiencies in internal controls were identified. So the next step, the auditors have or will file the REAC report as required and take care of any of those changes that may be requested or questions that come up. And that's all I have. So if anybody has any questions.
I will receive and order file the 2021 audited annual financial report.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any additional discussion on the matter?
Just a compliment to our financial department and the good work that the staff and Nicole are doing over there. It just goes to show in these kind of reports, so thank you.
Yeah, and the only thing that I noticed that there was a little blip up in 20. Is it just because we received more money related to COVID from federal sources? And then it looks like 21 is more indicative of what we have seen in 19. Is that maybe what we could attribute that to? You don't have to go and pull the graphs up. But
Yeah, well, I mean, to frame that question. Yeah. But,
Sure.
but the blip up in what?
It just, in some of I saw the trend as we were going through the graphs. It just looked like there was more activity, especially with funds coming in.
Yeah,
in,
so
in,
we
in
were
20.
trending more towards, just collecting the rents basically in Garden Terrace and not really doing a whole lot with that revenue, whereas more of these programs, the loan programs, the grant programs have kicked in. So there are more funds going out now than what
That's
had been
maybe more
before. So
indicative.
yeah,
Okay,
the
that makes
activity is
sense.
up more, so yeah.
Sure. Well, if we have the money, we
Yep.
should spend some
Yes.
of the money, right? I mean, okay. Any other? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 8.1, Economic Development Activity Report.
Commission President, Commissioners,
We missed 7.1, sorry.
Did I? Rental properties. Yeah, because when I pulled, yeah, you're right. Approve the 2022 budget for rental properties. Excuse me, I apologize for that.
All right, this item shouldn't take long. As Nicole mentioned, the rental property budget is our smallest budget, or one of our smallest budgets that we administer. The rental budget covers the single-family rental house at 320 North Broadway and the vacant lot at 326 North Broadway, both owned by the EDA. The 320 North Broadway rental house, that is a market rate rental. It's not a rental assistance program under the Public Housing or Section 8 program. The major expenses for that property are the annual property taxes and depreciation. And then some funding is budgeted for occasional staff time as required. Our public housing maintenance person also handles maintenance on that house, lawn mowing, snow removal, that kind of thing. And then the vacant lot at 326 North Broadway, the EDA has rented that out to interested parties in the past, and at times allowed community organizations to use the lot at no charge for their fundraising and other purposes. Also, Broadway House Apartments pays the EDA an annual fee of $600 to use the lot during the winter for tenant parking during snow removal of the Broadway House parking lot. You can see that there was some additional rental revenue received in 2020 for 326 North Broadway from B Concessions, and that's the Ted Bergstrom food truck. We also are receiving currently rental income in 2021 from B Concessions again, as well as the social food truck. So the budget is attached for your review if there's any questions.
Is that property in pretty good condition? I mean, are there any like future projects or improvements that you're anticipating?
Well, we were fortunate in that during the 2010 hailstorm, we got a new roof on the house. So that was actually coming up for replacement, and insurance covered that. So we should be good on the roof for a significant number of years to come. We did, was it last year, a major sewer line repair project. But other than that, there really hasn't been a lot of maintenance issues with that house since I've worked here. So,
This isn't where we set the rent for this property, correct?
well, the budget does include a rent increase. The current rent on the house is $575, and I am increasing that to $600 for 2022, just to keep up with market rents.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2022 budget for rental properties fund.
Well, second.
First and second, is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Now we can go to item 8.1, Economic Development Activity Report.
Commission President and Commissioners, I think the kind of major highlights would be we got together with Black Frost, the PUC, and ISG. We all got together to make sure we were all on the same page to go through their utility needs as far as steam. There were some issues pertaining to the steam going into the building, and they needed to depressurize that, and we wanted to make sure they were aware of that. So everyone's on the same page, so there shouldn't be any issues on the utility side moving forward. Hopefully for that project. We did close on the sale of the property behind Walmart with Stream's Edge. So hopefully next year they'll look at start doing construction on their freight facility. Working with Hanska Co-op for their reconstruction project, we got them in touch with Heartland Power, and they are looking at getting a USDA grant, rural economic development grant to help them with that project, but they also will be looking for city assistance down the road. Probably roughly in the amount of about $250,000. So that request will probably come before the EDA, as the city revolving loan fund doesn't have the current funds in there to fund that. And with that project, they'll be upgrading and redoing that facility, so it'll be a good addition. And usually when catastrophes like that happen, most of the time businesses just close shop. So we're really fortunate that they're willing to invest in the community to stay here. And then we did do a small business grant for Sweet Haven Tonics, and we will be preparing a loan for them. They want to do a small business loan, so that's in the amount of about $10,000. So we'll just do that without approval, and then you just approve the Spexus loan. So one thing that I wanted to touch on, and I know Les had asked at the last meeting, kind of what is that plan for the city as far as economic development goes. And so with that, Heather is going to be our main point of contact for all economic development activities. So Dave Schnobrick, myself, and John will be there to support her, and we'll kind of finish out our current projects. But any new projects, any businesses that call us for loans, information, that is all going to get funneled to Heather. The website is already changed. All the fact sheets have already have been changed. So Heather will be that point of contact. We did send out a press release at the end of September to kind of get that out there. And in the meantime, while we're moving forward with stuff. She has completed a financial course through the International Economic Development Council, and she will be taking next week the Introduction to Economic Development, which is a base course to be certified as a certified economic developer, the Real Estate Development and Reuse class, and a Business Retention and Expansion class next year. All the dates for this year have expired, so next year she'll be doing that, and then she'll be taking potentially 2 electives, and she can switch those, but right now she's interested in the economic development, marketing and attraction, and entrepreneurial and small business development strategies. So once she's done with all those classes, I have an email into the IEDC to see if her years serving on the EDA counts as economic development experience, so she can take the test, and if that experience does qualify, then she'll be able to take the test next year to potentially be a certified economic developer. John Nisley will actually also be going through this as well. So there's cross-training backup. With a planner, he's dealing with businesses on a regular basis too. So just having that cross-training and filling in would be good. And we'll see if his years, doing planning work counts as well. So potentially, if that does, then maybe next year we would have 2 certified economic developers on staff for the city. And so with a lot of that stuff, redoing the website, Heather's done a really good job of getting that information organized. But I think I am going to reach out to a web developer, some web developers to get some quotes on doing an economic development site. It'll still, when you click on business, it'll take you to the site. It's still going to be part of the city, but just something a little bit flashy isn't the word I want to use, but something a little bit more appealing to, site selectors and things like that, young entrepreneurs, having that information available to them. And that's, GIS planning, will be part of that as well. So having all that together. And then with all that information together, 22 will be the year that Heather, myself, John, and potentially Dave, we will be going up to Mankato, out to the Twin Cities to sit down and talk with those developers and brokers and get all our information in front of them. That's the plan, is to get there. Here, you can look for sites. Here's all our programs and services. Heather will be your main point of contact. Here's our community development director, charge of zoning and planning. So all those pieces will be together. And then in the December meeting, Heather and I are going to be working on doing an economic development annual report for the EDA to show everything we've done through the years, business outreach, all of that stuff, new programs implemented, because there's always talk that, the city, doesn't do anything, or businesses don't know what we do as far as economic development goes. So putting the economic development report out there is going to, this is everything we've done. This is everything we do. And so those are the things moving forward. Do you have any questions?
No, training's key. Cross-training is important as well. And I don't know, there is activity. That's really what I'm seeing here. And, looking to meet with developers, that's really it's really what we need to be doing. Yep. Having those conversations and saying that we're here for you, and, just not getting overlooked. Development's everywhere.
Yep.
It's in time with the 4-way coming through. This is fabulous.
Yeah.
It sounds great. So thank you.
I'll make motion to accept the Economic Development Activity Report for September 2021 activities.
Second.
First and second, is there any additional discussion on the matter? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. With no more business, we are adjourned.